The original Chibi-Robo was one of the most unique games I've ever played, but as we discussed in the previous video, due to it being such a late GameCube game, most people, including Nintendo, completely forgot about it. It was starting to look like this little robot might just be dead on arrival. But thankfully, Nintendo wasn't ready to give up on him, as a few years later we'd get a sequel on the DS in the form of Chibi-Robo Park Patrol. Yeah, apparently Chibi-Robo got a sequel, so what the heck? Why am I just now hearing about this game? I mean, the DS was successful and who the hell thought that was a good idea? Store exclusives aren't always a bad thing. Like, it's not uncommon to see a poster, for example, that's only available at Best Buy. But making an entire game exclusive to one store is just asking for it to fail. Yeah, Walmart is big, but not everyone shops at Walmart. So, by making Park Patrol a store exclusive, they severely limited its potential sales. This was made worse by the fact that Chibi-Robo didn't really have an identity for itself. The original sold fairly poorly, and because of this, the series wasn't on too many people's radar to begin with. So, what's the deal, Nintendo? You barely market the first game and then purposely limit the sales of its sequel. What do you got against Chibi-Robo? Was Park Patrol just a bad sequel and not worth giving a wider release to? Well, I guess let's try the game and find out for ourselves. Chibi-Robo Park Patrol started development not too long after the first game was completed. However, it would feature an almost entirely new team with only one of the directors returning. They originally tried to make a rhythm game where Chibi-Robo would dance to music that was played through the DS's microphone, but complications with background noise caused them to scrap the idea. Apparently it was Nintendo that specifically asked that this game be a new take on the series, and because of this, Park Patrol turned out to be a pretty different game when compared to the original, which just confuses me. I mean, there wasn't anything wrong with the first game. It would have been cool to see them expand upon that formula. But hey, Nintendo's never been a believer in the phrase of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, so let's give it a fair chance. We begin with Citrussoft, the company who produces Chibi-Robo, announcing that they're releasing a new model called Blooming Chibi-Robo. These models will apparently be given to parks all around the country free of cost? What kind of tax write-off bullshit is that? We then arrive at the park we're assigned to, and it ain't looking too hot. So it's our job to turn this place around. Well, I guess let's get started. The hell is that thing? Meet Chet. Chet is apparently Telly's replacement. Yeah, they got rid of one of the best characters from the first game and replaced him with this thing. I'm so excited I might short circuit? Well, don't let me stop you. After our introduction with Chet, we get our first real taste of gameplay. Now, you move with either the D-pad or the 4 face buttons, which leaves everything else mapped to the touchscreen. I was originally put off by this. I mean, why waste every button on movement? Why can't I just press a button to interact with something? Well, while it may seem gimmicky, after a while you'll start to appreciate this setup. Because every action uses the touchscreen, you aren't constantly switching between 2 input methods. This means you don't need to awkwardly put aside the stylus while pressing a button, then take it back out when you need the touchscreen. It's a simple control scheme that works surprisingly well for this type of game. Well, most of the time. You see, later on you'll gain access to various vehicles which you can use to get around faster. This is definitely a welcomed addition, as one of my biggest complaints with the previous game was how slow you moved. But for whatever reason, these are controlled with both the touchscreen and buttons at the same time. It should have been one or the other. It just doesn't feel very natural like this. You need to split your attention between the two, which gives you the same feeling as trying to rub your stomach and pat your head at the same time. It isn't consistent between vehicles either. Sometimes you turn with the touchscreen, and other times you accelerate with it. It's just an overall more frustrating way to get places, so I'd usually just stick to walking instead. Now, like I said before, our goal is to completely turn this park around. So how do we do that? Well, you need to plant flowers, and you do that by pulling out a boombox and dancing with them. You can't make this shit up. After you dance with the flower, it'll spread seeds around which you can water to create more flowers. Each one you plant will grant you some happy points, which return from the first game. However, this time happy points are a lot more important. You see, since this game takes place outdoors, there aren't too many outlets for you to use. So at the end of each day, Chet will literally devour all of your happy points and convert them into watts, which are used to charge your battery. This means you can only recharge as long as you have enough watts in reserve, which was pretty annoying at first, but after about an hour or so of gameplay, you'll have so many that you won't ever have to worry about it. Eventually though, you're gonna get bored of planting flowers. I mean, you're literally just dancing over and over again.
I'm so tired of partying. So very tired.
Thankfully, outside of tending to the park, there's a small town for you to explore. It's here that we get to meet all the other various characters, like a toy football mascot, a pair of surfing penguins, and a marionette who just wants to break free of the strings that keep him from true freedom. Damn, that's deep. On top of each having their own character arc, you can also recruit them to help with the park. They can do all sorts of things like tilling the soil so you can plant more flowers, building structures, and performing repairs. They won't work for free though, as you need to pay them in watts for every job they do. So not only do you need to make sure you have enough to keep your battery topped off, you also need to make sure you have enough to pay for these jobs. They work damn hard too. So hard in fact that they literally work themselves to death. I'm so sorry. Throughout the game, you'll occasionally run into this asshole known as Sergeant Smoggler. He likes smog. Who would have guessed? He's the main antagonist and wants nothing more than to see your park burn to the ground. On random days, he'll send out minions called Smoglings, and these things suck. They can kill your flowers if you don't deal with them quick enough, and they are a pain to get rid of. You have to constantly spray them with water, which is done using the touchscreen, so yeah. Hope you like arthritis. The story of the game is basically you trying to stop Sergeant Smoggler from polluting your park. Besides like one or two small twists, it never gets any more complicated than that. It's pretty disappointing, especially coming off the original Chibi-Robo story. Because of this, customizing your park is definitely the biggest component here. There's a lot you can do to it too, like choosing where paths and rivers go, building various structures, and even creating hills and slopes. It gave me a very Animal Crossing vibe, and I really enjoyed it. That enjoyment didn't last long though, as I started to question what the heck was even the point of it all. See, what makes customizing something in Animal Crossing so much fun is sharing it with others. Chibi-Robo Park Patrol doesn't have that aspect though, so you don't ever have a reason to actually personalize anything. This game could have really benefited from some type of multiplayer feature where you could share your park with others. But because it doesn't, after a while I just started doing the bare minimum in order to progress the story. There's just so much missed potential here. The game has the same charm and personality as the original, but everything else is so half-baked. If I had to describe Park Patrol in just one word, it would definitely be repetitive. 90% of the game is just planting flowers. The other 10% is recruiting characters to work for you that aren't nearly as charming as the original's cast. The previous game just had so much freedom and variety in its gameplay, and Park Patrol doesn't even come close to matching that. There wasn't any reason to abandon what they had with the first Chibi-Robo, so why did they? Honestly, I think it's because of how poorly the first game sold. Due to the poor sales, Nintendo just assumed people weren't into that type of game. But they weren't ready to give up on the characters, so they decided to try something new with its sequel. The thing is though, people didn't pass on the first Chibi-Robo because they weren't interested. They passed on it because they didn't even know it existed. Nintendo failed to market it, so of course people weren't gonna pick it up. The original formula failed because they didn't give it a proper chance to succeed. Thankfully though, it seemed like Nintendo realized this and started work on a third game that was more in line with the original. Was this the game to finally give Chibi-Robo the love he deserves? I mean, you all know how the story ends, so probably not. But be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video on the Japanese exclusive Okari Chibi-Robo Happy Richie Osoji, or just Chibi-Robo Clean Sweep. Also, don't forget to leave a like if you're enjoying this Chibi-Robo retrospect, and if you missed the previous video, you can check out this playlist to get all caught up. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.